This is the Seahawkers podcast, week 6, quick reaction show as the Seahawks go into London and come away with the 27-3 victory over the Oakland Raiders. And I'm joined by my good buddy, Adam Emmert, who is also losing his voice.
I was going to say, this edition of the quick reaction show is going to sound a little different.
It's a little froggy.
It's, I feel like I'm 13 again and like oscillating between registers. Wow. What a weekend, man. What a game. What a performance by the Seahawks. What a performance by the 12s. What a performance by the little flockers. Like, there is so much to get into tonight. It is 2 a.m. here in London and we're winding down, but we knew we had to get this out to you guys. What a freaking amazing performance.
2 a.m. here in London, yet 6 o'clock back at home in Seattle. And
right now it's 2 a.m. That's what I know.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the one big takeaway from me, and the only way to really know this was to experience it, and just to see how special a game like this was to so many of the 12s that are outside of the Seattle area.
Right.
We joined up with a ton of listeners from Germany, from Denmark, from Norway, from Iceland.
From your mom's house. No, but like literally from, every
Ireland.
corner of the globe.
Yeah.
It really is,
and some of them,
stupendous.
And some of them, this was their first game that they ever attended.
And it really did mean the world to them to get this opportunity.
Fans who thought that they came up and said to us, I never even dreamed that I would be able to go to a Seahawks game.
Right. Let alone have it be an hour's flight from where I live, or a 2-hour drive, or a 3-hour train ride, and that kind of goes to show you how important these NFL games are in London to really connect with an entire fan base that is over here that feels more or less neglected in a lot of ways, whether that's not being able to travel to see the team, not getting the news and information about their team, finding it very difficult to watch the games and jumping through the hoops to make it happen so that they watch the game, whether that's, altering their entire sleep cycle, or
staying off social media for a day.
Yeah. Or just the consternation of just trying to find a feed of it somewhere that you can watch it. Very cool. And then on top of all that, the Seahawks came out and they treated them to a freaking show.
A game where the Seahawks put it together on both offense and defense.
And special teams.
And special teams. And then the crowd at the game to top it all off.
Right. I don't know how much time we want to spend on this, because I could spend an hour talking about the atmosphere in London regarding the 12s and the amount of support here by Seahawks fans. It was astounding. You talked a little bit about just the listeners of the show that we met up with. How about all the people that we met up with who aren't listeners of the show?
Yeah.
Who are diehard, dyed-in-the-wool 12s that were literally everywhere. We took a bus tour of London with 2 buses packed.
Double-decker bus.
Double-decker English buses packed with Seahawks fans. And we basically drove around the city for 4 hours and terrorized this poor city. And everywhere we went, you couldn't go further than a block without seeing a 12 walking around out on the street, and the entire bus screaming at them, starting a Seahawks chants or go Hawks or whatever, and to watch their faces light up and like just be so excited. The sheer quantity of the fan base that was here was astounding. And then going into the stadium, I think we both had a feeling like this could be a little bit homish for us. And it was more than that.
It was. And you heard it from the players. You heard it from Coach Carroll. Coach Carroll, he likened it to a bowl game. But really, I talked to a lot of people who were in different parts of the stadium who were saying, I think it really was like 60, 70% Seahawks fans. And that's, you looked throughout the crowd though, and there were so many other jerseys where you saw Packers fans and Cardinals fans and Rams fans and a Rams fan with a Dolphins fan wife.
We're going to get into that on the full show,
Yeah.
but that is a couple that needs to go away. The male was wearing a Gurley jersey and the female was wearing a Jay Ajayi Dolphins jersey. And I'm quite certain that if they procreate, that's what the Antichrist will come from.
It could be
I'm
really
very
bad.
concerned about this.
But we really should get to the game because holy smokes, it was a good game, 27-3. And Russell spread the ball around. The Seahawks set the tone on that very first drive of the game. The Raiders kick it off to Seattle, and they just pound it down the field with the running game. And it ends with Russell Wilson touchdown pass over the middle to Jerron Brown.
Yeah, Jerron Brown steps up and he gets it lit. He starts the whole thing off, which is very cool. But really, before that, what really kicked it off was 7 runs in a row.
Yeah.
7. The Seahawks came out and they let the Raiders know right quick, we ain't playing. This running game, this isn't an aberration. This running game, you can't hope to stop it. We're going to jelly this right down your throat, and then we're going to cap it off by just tossing it over the middle to Jerron Brown.
And the fact the Seahawks on third down conversions, I think the run game with how it played in terms of third down conversions throughout the day, 9 of 13. And you saw so many times where they were in positions where it was 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, staying on schedule like they like to do, and putting them in a situation to where if it is 3rd and 3, you don't have to worry about running the ball because you can be more physical than the team on the other side of the football. And that was the thing that was apparent in the matchup between the Raiders and the Seahawks. It's just how physical, much more physical on both sides of the line with the offensive line. I don't know if we can give, we've spent so many years harping on the offensive line. And so now for 4 straight games, especially since DJ Fluker has been in the lineup, since J.R. Sweezy's been over at left guard, the offensive line continues to, it makes me happy.
I like that it gets you a little giddy because it should. And the reason why it should is that, just like I said, this is not an aberration. Like, this is real. This is happening. This offensive line has come together. This thing that we've been begging for, the change that we've been begging for, has absolutely occurred. And you see it both in personnel and in coaching and in scheme, and a commitment by Brian Schottenheimer to actually run the out of the football. And that to me is really the difference. And it was unbelievable, the absolute dominance the Seahawks had over the Raiders. They stole the Raiders' lunch on that first drive. And then from there on out, they weren't just dominant on the offensive line. They were dominant on the defensive front as well. They made a Tom Cable line look like Swiss cheese, which, as we all understand, is not exactly that difficult. But I actually had a bit of empathy for Derek Carr and Raiders fans, knowing exactly what they were suffering. This was the Raiders offensive line that has a lot of talent on it, but somehow looks like it can't even play JV ball.
Well, and they are dealing with a lot of injuries, especially on the left side of the line.
Those are excuses that the Raiders would use. Just excuses. Like, this is Tom Cable.
Right. Oh, I absolutely agree. It's the same thing that we dealt with, right? And
yeah,
and we made those excuses.
There's something oddly satisfying watching our defensive line just dominate Tom Cable.
It was incredibly satisfying. And it started with the ability to shut down Marshawn Lynch in this game on the defensive line,
which was less satisfying.
Well, there were a couple times where I had to hold back the urge to yell beast.
Right.
Because he did have a couple of those runs where traditionally Seahawks fans would be chanting beast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the Raiders fans haven't really caught on yet.
They haven't. No. Yeah. But 13 attempts, 45 yards for Marshawn Lynch, and just really kept him in check. David Carr had almost as many rushing yards as Lynch with his 4 carries with 31 yards. And I think the big thing for the Seahawks, we talked about it going into this game, was the ability to shut down their best pass catcher and Jared Cook. And he had 2 catches for 10 yards.
Yeah, that was definitely the guy that struck a little fear into me when I was kind of analyzing what could happen in this game, especially with the problems with the tight ends over the past. But like we've spoken about over the last couple of years, they've really figured that out. And they took Jared Cook away quick, fast, in a hurry. He was never really available for Carr. And then you also saw T2 basically dismember yet another receiver live and in person on the field.
Now, are you talking about the hit on Amari Cooper?
Correct.
That one probably should have been called because there was some helmet-to-helmet contact in that.
Yeah, that was a long ways away, and I missed a video replay, so I can't speak to that. I can't speak to that with any sort of intelligence.
Yeah, I did see the video replay, and it was whereas last week it was a good shoulder hit to the receiver. This one was a little helmet-to-helmet. So, but it doesn't take away from how physical the defense was playing.
Well, we lose Cam Chancellor forever.
Right.
And you wonder who's going to be that enforcer, who's going to bring the boom from the back end. We know who's bringing it from the middle. That's Bobby. But we didn't know who's bringing it from the back end, that guy that everybody fears when they're running those crossing routes across the middle. And it's not McDougald. He's not the guy that you're afraid of. Not that he's a bad player, not that he's really crushing people.
He's laid the wood to some dudes too, though.
Right, but not like Cam style.
Sure.
Yeah, T2 is living up to the nickname. Like, he's terminating people. Like, he's going to be the teams are going to watch his film, and receivers' heads are going to be on a swivel. He's coming along.
Well, Derek Carr's head was on a swivel in this game, and a big part of that was because Frank Clark. If you talk about a dominant performance on defense, Clark with 4 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and he didn't even play the full game.
Yeah, that's more or less than a half.
Yeah. Pete Carroll said he got sick in the second half. I don't know if he's still dealing with the food poisoning or what.
I don't know. It's a little concerning, though, that now we've got 2 weeks in a row, like all of a sudden mysterious illness has popped up. Yeah. I just hope he doesn't end up with who was that? Jeremy Macklin disease. That's like just this weird random like sickness that nobody can like diagnose for like a year in some. But
he has a bye week now,
right,
to get right.
Right. Well, he can feel good over that bye week after he dump trucked the left tackle, like just dump trucked him. Like it was a bull rush right to his chest and planted him on his tuchus and just destroyed Derek Carr. 2 forced fumbles, like you talked about. This defense was creating turnover opportunities. Now they were only +2 in the turnover battle, but they could have easily been +3, +4.
Were they +1 or were they?
I'm sorry, +1. Yeah, they had 2 turnovers, but +1 because Russ threw the pick, which was ill advised. That was his one bad throw of the day.
Yeah, and he had another throw that was outside to the running back that kind of threw him behind a little bit. But for the most part, Russell Wilson, an outstanding day, 222 yards.
Wait a second, he only threw for 222 yards? How can that be an outstanding day?
17 of 23.
But he only threw for 222 yards. That's not good.
What yardage marker do you have to get at to be considered good?
I don't know. Drew Brees numbers, 5,000 in a game. I don't know what the number is, but apparently like yeah, that's the most important thing. But you talk about the completion percentage, high. You talk about the touchdown to interception ratio, high. And all of that lands him with a QB rating of apparently fire. According to Bleacher Report.
Bleacher Report no longer measures their quarterback ratings in actual numbers. They've switched to emojis.
You can imagine the level of ire that drew for me.
Now, is it when they measure in fire? Is it the number of flames? Emojis?
Who the hell knows? I don't speak this godforsaken language. I don't speak in hieroglyphs. Like I use my words and stats and statistics and numbers. Like what the hell is this? Like am I gonna, if Aaron Rodgers has a bad game next week, is I get a QB rating of a frowny face? Yeah. I like or the embarrassed face. Like what do you put up there?
Maybe the whatever emoji.
Yeah. Which one's worse or better than the next? Who the hell knows?
Well, a lot of those passes from Russell Wilson in this game are going in the direction of Doug Baldwin. And talking to a lot of fans leading up to this game, I think a lot of us were looking at that game from Doug Baldwin where you knew he was back. And 6 receptions on 8 targets, 91 yards. He doesn't get a touchdown, but Russell spreads those touchdowns around to everybody on the team. David
He's
Morgan,
the Santa Claus of touchdowns.
The Oprah of touchdowns.
Oh, that's better. That's way better.
David Moore, you get a touchdown. Tyler Lockett, you get a touchdown. Deron Brown, you get a touchdown.
Touchdowns for everyone. No, that's well done by you. I'm very impressed by the Oprah reference. But what's funny is in the stands, the first reception Doug had.
Yeah.
Everybody and it wasn't a remarkable reception. It wasn't even a first down. I mean, I can't remember exactly, but it was just like a 6-yard, in route or something like that. And pretty much everyone around us were Seahawks fans. And we all looked at one another and we all just kind of applauded and we're like, oh, yay, Doug's back.
Yeah, after the one reception.
Yeah. Well, it's because they totally changed their offensive game plan of how they get Doug involved.
According to Doug Baldwin, hearing him in the press conference, asked why such a dramatic change. From
yes, it must be a technical. It must be a technical, highly thought out situation.
No, it turns out Doug Baldwin, according to him, Russell just threw his way more.
What?
The dramatic increase was due to the fact that Russell Wilson threw more balls in the direction of Doug Baldwin.
So if you have more balls in your direction, you can catch more balls
and get more yards.
So the more balls, the merrier. Is that basically what I'm getting out of this? But yeah, it's hilarious. Somebody asked him, why the increase in production? And he's just like, yeah, we threw the ball my direction more. Freaking duh. That was one of my favorite answers of this season.
That was my favorite. And the Seahawks go on to score 27 points. They put up 27 points before the Raiders happened to get their first points on the board in this game. And they settle for a field goal.
Gifted to them.
It was gifted to them. That was a turnover.
All right. What I don't want to see in the league is a trend to where turnovers and fumbles end up looking like the catch rule. When nobody knows what a fumble is, just nobody knows what a catch is. If that wasn't a fumble,
yeah,
then we have no fumbles in the NFL.
A fumble is when you lose possession of the ball, correct?
Correct. Before you are down.
Right.
Right.
And feet on the ground don't count as being down.
No,
you have to have a knee
that's
or
still
an elbow.
Feet equal not down.
Right.
Yeah.
Or else that would be very confusing on the catches.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Caught the ball and then I happen to put my feet on the ground and gosh dang it, now I'm down. That'd be a problem.
So that'll be a curious one to see how that plays out this week.
Oh, that's not a curious one. I get out your broom because that's getting swept right under the rug.
Yeah.
Yeah, the NFL ain't talking about that for a hot minute. No way.
Well, just one of the big things about the running game in the game against the Raiders this week was how they spread it around. You had Chris Carson, 14 carries, 59 yards. Rashad Penny, he got a lot of cleanup work late in the game when it was clearly in the control of the Seahawks.
Wait, what's his name?
Rashad Penny.
Oh, well, maybe give a call to the announcers of the football game because they can't be bothered to figure out what his first name is.
Richard,
Perry,
Richard,
something-ish. Yeah. Rashad Penny. Look it up. It's easy.
They're going to struggle with that.
Yeah. No, well, they shouldn't if they're a professional.
Mike Davis, 6 carries, 21 yards. And look at this, Adam.
Yeah. They called him Mikey Davis a few times. I struggled with his name, too. I don't think that's true, but it felt right.
Russell Wilson, 6 carries, 20 yards. We actually saw him take the ball and run with it a couple times.
Yeah, we did. See, here's the funny part about that. This is the game that I didn't need to see that.
Right.
This is the game we didn't need that. It didn't feel like the extra element that we need. We could have just sat and pounded the rock the whole time and it didn't matter. Maybe the idea is that you put it out there on film now just to get people thinking about it.
Because in the past weeks, it kind of gone away from that.
Oh, yeah. This whole season, they've gone away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about the offense, talked about the defense. how about we talk about the special teams and some of the crowd reactions to the special teams and how that carried over into the broadcast in interesting ways. Because
Really?
we did. Well, we were at the game, so
Yes.
we didn't know necessarily what was going on with the broadcast, but we heard some interesting things, some interesting reports from people local.
Correct.
Listening on the BBC station. For one, it sounded like they were trying to maybe play it off like the home crowd was confused about who they were cheering for and at what times, and kind of mixing up some of the reactions, because when the special teams, when the Seahawks on kickoffs run down toward the end zone, they kind of fire up the crowds a little bit.
Right. So if you're not familiar, because if you don't go to any of the games, this is not something they really show on TV. But it is something that the Seahawks have done and will continue to do consistently forever. And that is on, especially on kickoff coverage, like say it's kicked out the back of the end zone, all the guys will run down to the back of the end zone that the ball has just traveled out of. And they will do it as fast and as hard as they can. When they get down to the end of that end zone, they're looking for their fans, and they're trying to get people fired up. Their arms in the air, mean mugging people, doing poses and things like that. And it elicits a reaction from the crowd. And it's not that when they do that they're trying to get them to cheer for Derek Carr.
Right.
They're doing that because they want them to cheer for them, and they do.
And so it turned out the TV reaction was a little bit confused. The fans were cheering Derek Carr coming onto the field. No, those were Seahawks fans that were cheering on their special teamers that had just
correct.
Were firing up the crowd a little bit.
Right. There was even a point in the game where the game announcer in the stadium was having a hard time getting fired up for like the few and far between Raiders first down. You could tell he was trying there for a while. Then all of a sudden, first down, whatever. Kind of like all the Raiders fans.
Yeah. Well, there were very few first downs for the Raiders.
And very few fans for the Raiders.
Yeah. Well, just 15 first downs for the Raiders, 19 for the Seahawks. Time of possession, the Seahawks clearly won it with 31-26. Third down conversions for the Raiders, just 4 of 12 in this game, and just 185 yards. I mean, they shut down Derek Carr, 23 of 31, just 142 yards. They were giving him the checkdowns all day. And we even got frustrated at a couple times just because they were allowing that checked out so often.
Well, they were semi-effective, right?
Yeah.
And it was frustrating, but also too, it was even a little bit beyond that they were allowing that. It was kind of more to me. I don't know if it felt like this to you, Brandon, but that Gruden was really into the idea of just this little dink and dunk nonsense offense. And the thing about it is that we came into this game thinking that Derek Carr, having completed over 70% of his passes, was having this incredibly efficient season. Well, when you watched him in person and you watched all these little checkdowns and screens and hot routes and just 2-3 yard completions, well, geez Louise, if my grandma could go out there and complete 65% of those passes, I'd hope Derek Carr could finish a little above 70%. There, as much as we complain about shoddy, being from another age, from centuries ago, then I'm pretty sure that John Gruden hands out his playbook chiseled on stone tablets because it was pathetic.
And it showed up in terms of net yards for passing because there weren't a lot of passes completed downfield, but then when you take into account 6 sacks and loss of 36 yards,
that could have been 45 sacks. You know what I mean?
The defensive line was, I don't know if we can stress this enough, but I mean, you talked about how much fun it was to go against a Tom Cable coach.
It was oddly pleasing. Yes.
I could talk about this all day.
Yes, I could.
I mean, you saw it from Frank Clark. You saw it from Quentin Jefferson. You saw Shamar Stephen get in there for a sack. Jaron Reed had a dominant performance, and Brandon Jackson was in there for a sack too. So just a big performance from the defensive line. It was exciting.
The pressure from the defensive line felt different.
Yeah.
because seemingly on every play, you had this sense that like they were a step away from him if they weren't on him already. Like they were right there. And they really did just smother Derek Carr and apparently hurt him. He came down on his left arm, and I saw him have a hard time getting up, and then he trotted off to the sidelines. Things were going on in the game, and I ignored the game, and I just tried to watch Carr to see where he went, and they may have taken him through a magical portal to Hogwarts or something, because I was watching him, and then he was gone. I don't know what happened. I've yet to hear a report.
Yeah, well, it was his elbow that was an issue, but the severity is something we haven't heard yet. I want to go back to some of the comments from the announcers too, and one of the things that they said was that this crowd was they've never seen the support for one team,
right,
at Wembley as they have with the Seahawks, and that's just we talked about it to open the show, just how much it means to people. And so to hear that come across to the broadcasters as well is really cool.
Well, it was interesting because for example, I went out for a run the day before and ran around the river here. And if I were to have said go Hawks to every single person wearing Hawks gear as I was running, like I wouldn't have made it more than about a quarter mile in 2 hours, because it was just every 100 yards that I ran, there was a group of 4 Seahawks fans. There was a couple walking over here. There was a dude in a hoodie over there. Like it was crazy. It just seemed like there was an incredible amount of fans. And it was 10-1 seemingly, and that's what the custom agents told us as we came through. As we came through, and I was like, okay, yeah, fine. But it really kind of proved out. And then, going to the game and witnessing, just how lopsided it was in favor of the Seahawks among the fans. I made it a point to ask as many people that I could find, like, is this normal? Like, I mean, when the Jags and the whoever's play, like here is one team more broadly supported than the other. And like, over how many games now? 22 games?
I think that's what it was. It was in the 20s, right?
Yeah. I've been playing in London.
11 years.
Yeah, 11 years. And to a person, everybody was like, no, it's always just kind of meh.
A mix.
Yeah. And they were all surprised as to just how pro Hawk the crowd was, and it was an absolute delight and a ball to be a part of that. And you can tell by our voices
right,
that we were in full throat. And there came a point to where I had to shut it down to just third down. Like I had to become a situational cheer, like a situational pass rusher.
Right. Thank goodness that the Seahawks went up as much as they did.
Yeah.
Because if this had been a close game, we wouldn't be doing this show. And you know what? This is partly to blame on the UK Seahawkers too.
Well, they know what they did.
They know what they did. But what they did was put on an absolutely incredible get together at the Revolution on Saturday night.
Holy smokes.
With more than 500 Seahawks fans packed into that place.
Oh, and if that thing would have held 1,400,
I think it would have been full.
I know it would have been full. Yeah. I mean, you could tell, like the line was coming out the back down the street. And let's give all of the folks with the UK Seahawkers an amazing amount of credit pulling this whole event off. And I mean, short of the fact that they could have turned the music down about like 40 decibels because I'm old and get off my lawn.
Well, but that's why I'm kind of pointing to the fact of our voices, because, to be able to talk over the music the night before the game, that kind of contributed to our voices being
that, and then the gift of being able to like meet up so many different times with all the listeners along the way. Like, and what was cool too is like everybody was so inquisitive, like they wanted to ask us a million questions, and of course, like you asked me a million questions, I want to give you a million answers back because thank you for the attention. Like I appreciate you caring about what the hell I think, and yeah, you combine all that with a game where you're trying to scream your lungs out to drown out like the 4 Raider fans, that basically wanted to crawl in a hole and die like within the first quarter. That was fun. It was really fun. And so here we are and putting this together for you guys tonight. But I hope everybody in Seahawks Nation right now is grinning ear to ear because we are now 3 of our last 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
We have been dominating in certain areas of football that I think are super important, and that is running the football and stopping the run. In a part of our season where we played the majority of our games on the road, easier opponents coming up here shortly, and then finishing it out with a bunch of games at home. This feels pretty freaking special, does it not?
It does feel like they are carrying a lot of momentum into the bye week. And what I really hope is that they can continue that coming out of the bye week and going into Detroit and coming back home against San Diego. Like, I hope that momentum carries with them.
Well, I mean, I think at this point, I think you can bet on it more than hope, right?
Yeah.
Because
they found the formula.
We've seen it with, okay, whether or not you know the formula, right? Or found it,
right?
However you want to say it. Can you implement it?
And they can.
Against anybody.
Right. Against the Rams defense who...
against the best team in football, quote unquote.
Right.
Against one of the worst teams in football, the Raiders. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, they're on the road, on another continent with the impossible struggles of traveling.
See, how much did I tell you when we were preparing, when we were talking about and previewing the game against the Raiders and talking about how much Coach Gruden was just dreading the
crybaby. That's about it.
Right. And how much now do you think that played into nearly getting shut out, which what should have been a shutout? Like, you go in with that mentality into a game like this, and it's going to go down to the players.
Holy smokes. I think this is one of the biggest points that we can bring up. Like, we've heard, I want to say it was Tyler Lockett talk about it, maybe even Pete a little bit. Like, yeah, it was a challenge and everything, but we just kind of made up our minds that it wasn't gonna make a difference on us.
Yeah.
Right.
And we knew how and individually they handled it differently.
Right. And I think you and I kind of came over here even too with our own mindset of like, okay, yeah, I mean, the time change is supposedly a struggle or whatever, but like, we're both like, so what?
Yeah.
We'll just do it. And I mean, honestly, I don't know how you feel, but like right now it is now 2:30ish. Right. And it feels like 2:30ish. Like it took basically a night and half a day.
Uh-huh.
And you're done.
Yeah.
And you're in and you're fine and you're ready to rock. Seahawks traveled the same day we did. They showed up ready. I was ready. You were ready. Everybody here was ready. And we lit up Wembley Stadium.
We lit up Wembley Stadium, and our Seahawkers podcast listeners lit up the Rocket. What a great time with those folks. We even had a Cardinals fan join the group, and he told me that he was going to put on a Seahawks jersey if I gave him a shout out on the show. And I think this is somebody that we can convert, because he only picked the Cardinals because his soccer team here in England has a relationship to the Cardinals. So he just picked the wrong bird. And dude, now that you've had the shout out, now that Bruce Arians is gone and coached the team, see, he even left. You can leave.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, people might call you a bandwagon fan and all that, but here's the thing. Once you come to be a 12, you'll never leave. And so you'll never be a bandwagon fan again.
Right.
Look, this is much easier. Like, why would you choose that crappy organization when you can come and be with the Seahawks, who have basically owned this division since they have become a part of this division
and clearly own this country.
Yes, clearly own this country.
Oh, what a great time. So many folks from so many different places. I know we listed a lot of those countries off at the top of the show.
I could sit here and try to like rattle off names.
Yeah.
And like we would take up another half an hour of all of you amazing little flockers that came out and spent your time with us. It meant much.
You know who you are.
It meant much. And yeah, you know who you are. And it was a good experience for me. It really was. Helped kind of, I hope maybe too for you, Brandon, like it kind of put a little more wind in my sails, like, kind of keep it going, like all that, because I mean,
everybody that came up to us talked about how much the show meant to him in different ways.
Yeah.
That's really
unpredictable ways.
right.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Yeah. That's gonna help carry me through this next off season when I get all like bitchy and whiny about the grind of it. Because I do. I know I do. I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm a princess. Like, it's true.
All right, Adam. Well, I think we need to save the rest of our voices and hopefully have them back for our regular recap show later in the week. And if they're not back by then, we have a bye week.
That's right.
And with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.